Taite Kubo's 686 chapter manga will be today's topic. Now, before I start, I'd like to mention that recently there's been a lot of talk about Bleach making a return, and honestly, I hope it does make a comeback. Bleach is the reason I got into anime, manga, and writing as a whole. That said, I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't. And after watching this video, you might not be surprised either. I have a short video highlighting the things that I'll go over and why, so be sure to quickly check that out if you have any questions regarding why I chose to focus on these specific areas. Kubo does a decent job introducing Ichigo. We find out that he's a kind person, a fighter, assertive, and that he can see ghosts. Where Kubo's lack of writing technique is shown is when Rukia gives Ichigo a PowerPoint presentation on the souls that live on Earth and the duties of Shinigami. Not only did Ichigo never ask, Ichigo, as far as Rukia knows, is just another human at this current point in the story. So why is a Shinigami explaining this to a human? Shouldn't she be focused on her mission? Logic flaws aside, there's no need to explain all of this. This is clearly fiction. The audience isn't going to drop the series because they don't know where Shinigami or Hollows come from or what they do. It would actually create more interest by not immediately giving an answer to these questions that the audience would otherwise have. Kubo tried to hide his exposition via a proxy and flopped on the technique. Our reason for watching more? Ichigo just became a Shinigami, and that opens the door to a whole new world. Who wouldn't want to find out more about a brave high school kid that can see ghosts, evil spirits, and Shinigami? Overall, I think Kubo had a pretty decent first chapter in terms of interest and character introduction, but not very good in terms of planning, and I'll explain this in my next topic. Something that I'd like to briefly address before I get into the next topic, however, is that Kubo was given a deadline on short notice to abruptly end his series ahead of schedule. Now yes, this is horrifying to hear as a writer, but this does not excuse him from criticism. The series started in 2001 and ended in 2016. Most writers write and plan their story even before it gets published. Kubo had roughly 10 to 12 years at the minimum to fully flesh out the story. There's a reason why Kubo and his editor or editors didn't have a good relationship. This is my own speculation, but I wouldn't be surprised if it stemmed from all the inconsistencies that Kubo made in his work. It isn't a surprise to me why it is with the last arc that Jump decided to cut him off, as this arc had by far the most glaring holes in the series. Normally, when something doesn't make sense, a writer will save himself as the story unfolds by explaining things later on, but Kubo did the opposite. He was able to make holes in his past arcs with the introduction of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. This is, unfortunately, the only time Kubo has impressed me with his writing. Continuity. This is going to be a pretty lengthy section. I'll address the issues I have with the first chapter, then I'll talk about the rest of the story. Rukia should recognize Ishin. She was admitted into the 13th Division and Ishin was a captain at the time. I'm supposed to believe that Rukia, a member of a noble family, a member of the Gote 13, and friends with Kane Shiba, doesn't know who Ishin Shiba is. She also recognizes Ichigo, which only makes this worse. Rukia, who's a Shikai user, somehow fails to identify Ichigo's spiritual pressure, and the entire situation of Ichigo's spiritual pressure jamming a Shikai user's senses makes no sense. She also says that the Hollows are after him for his heightened spiritual pressure, so I'm supposed to believe Hollows can sense and locate Ichigo, but Rukia can't while she's standing right next to him. I know Aizen is the one setting up the scenario. However, Rukia is still able to sense spirits. I mean, it's the first line in the series. On to the rest of the series. The final Getsuga. Why didn't more captains know about this technique? It's because this technique just gets pulled out of Ishin's ass. Not only is this information coming from someone who never used it, but it also has Ichigo fuse Quincy, Hollow, and Shinigami powers. So he doesn't even do the proper technique. There were multiple ways of defeating Aizen without committing a Deus Ex Machina. Option 1. Have Urahara reclaim or booby trap his part of the Hogyoku in some way. This would play into the entire rivalry between the two and show that Urahara really is smarter than Aizen, as Aizen himself admits. Option 2. Have Gin tell the Gote 13 of Kyoka's weakness. This would make Gin's betrayal more significant and would still allow for exciting fight scenes. This way, we also take care of Aizen's logical flaw of never showing Ichigo his Shikai release. Option 3. Have Orihime reject the Hogyoku or Aizen himself. This would justify Orihime's actions and have her not depend on Ichigo, as that is what she was trying to avoid in the first place. She also thought about doing it the first time she saw the Hogyoku, so it makes sense for her to get as close to Aizen as she possibly could. Ashwelin. One of the worst offenses, the death of Ichigo's mom. We're supposed to believe Ichigo's mom is a Quincy, but she was killed by an ordinary hollow. Kubo tries to fix this by saying that she only died because Yuha took her powers via Ashwelin, but this indirectly ruins the entire story, simultaneously ruins the ending, and makes the entire series illogical. If Yuha could take the powers of all Quincy's, and as the name suggests, pick and choose whose abilities to take, Uryu, who isn't a pure breed Quincy, somehow has an immunity to Yuha's power. And to top it off, his grandfather and father also don't get affected by Ashwelin either. This would be believable if it turned out that they were all incredibly skilled, but that never gets showcased or even implied. Soken died to regular hollows. This would also imply that Ichigo and his sisters would lose their Quincy powers to Yuha since none of them are pure-blooded Quincy's, but that also somehow doesn't happen. This also lets Yuha kill Ichigo without fighting him directly, since Ichigo is a Quincy, and would potentially get Steel Silver in his heart and die. So Yuha can kill one of the war potentials with ease, but he doesn't. The Almighty. Yuha could have taken care of all potential threats years in advance, but doesn't. With this power, it also means that Ichigo's existence can't be hidden from Yuha, which I think Kubo tries to imply with Born in the Darkness chapter. He should have also been able to know about Steel Silver and its properties. How could Kubo defeat Yuha without pulling something out of his ass? For the first solution to work, you can't make Ichigo a Quincy and give Ashwelin to Yuha. These should be exclusive, since doing both makes Ichigo a sitting duck for Yuha to kill. And for all solutions to work, you have to unseal Aizen for it to be believable. Option 1. Both Ichigo and Aizen know hollow techniques. Hollows are poison to Quincy, so just have them defeat Yuha by using hollow techniques. Imagine Ichigo in a Vastolorde / resurrection form, and Aizen in his resurrection form kill Yuha, and then have them either fight it out or part ways. Option 2. If you really need to do both, Ichigo a Quincy and give Ashwelin to Yuha, you have to kill Ichigo and have Aizen be freed from his seals. This also gives Kubo the best opportunity to show Aizen's Bankai and have him defeat Yuha in a fight for the Seed of God. Then you can have him become the new Soul King, the thing he was after since the start. We then have Ichigo become a real Shinigami, marry Rukia, and become a captain, captain commander, or a Zero Squad member. This flows the best and makes for a really solid twist and ending. You also have a potentially tear-jerking scene showing Orihime having to let go of Ichigo, her love interest. This also creates a huge inner conflict in Orihime, since her powers are to reject reality, but wasn't able to reject what Yuha did, and therefore must concede Ichigo to Rukia, who was the more assertive of the two throughout the series. This also plays into Rukia x Ichigo, and how that ship makes a lot more sense than the actual canon ship. There's a lot of other issues I could touch on, but you get the point by now. Plot and pacing. The plot is very uninspiring. Ichigo just wants to protect his friends, and that's all he ever does. The implementation of the plot is very generic and bland. His friends get into trouble, and he does his best to save them. All of the arcs accomplish the same thing, and involve the same solutions. You have Ichigo progressively get stronger, and get clapped into a Deus Ex Machina into a victory for Ichigo. The Fullbring arc could have been completely left out, and the story wouldn't have dropped a beat. The pacing has very generic issues, fights drag on, and bloated forgetful volumes and characters that do nothing for the story. Kubo could have left out all of the Orankar fractions, so much attention when they could have been completely left out, and have Kubo focus on the actual espadas, things that we're actually here for. The espadas that were hyped for like 20 volumes. Did the Gerard Luchador Lilia fight, every faction fight ever, really have to drag on for so long? No, they didn't. And the other side of this has Ichigo get ridiculous power-ups in like 2 chapters. His Bankais, 10 years to learn by the way. Mugetsu, Vastolorde / Resurrection. Bleach is a prime example of horrible pacing. Character depth and analysis. A dog's lack of ambition. What is Ichigo's goal? Is it to protect his friends? Ichigo is always reactionary, meaning he doesn't push the story forward. He's always waiting for the world around him to push him in a direction. The reason he became a Shinigami is because Rukia guilt trips him into it. The reason he goes to Soul Society and learns Shikai and Bankai is to save Rukia. It implies that if nothing happens to Rukia, Ichigo would not further his Shinigami training. He learns to use his Hollow Mask to go to Wakamundo and save Orihime. So if Orihime doesn't go to Wakamundo, Ichigo again doesn't further his training. he gets manipulated by Ginjo into gaining new powers to help keep his friends safe. In the 1000 Deus Ex Machina arc, he states that he felt like he was summoned by Yuha. Throughout the story, Ichigo gets manipulated and told what to do. This man is never the root of his own actions. The story unfolds and he just so happens to be friends with the people involved. Ichigo doesn't seem to like fighting. He only celebrates one victory in the entire story, the one versus Byakuya, when he saves Rukia. The rest of the time, he feels sad for his opponents. Ichigo continuously shows a lack of motivation throughout the story and also signs of indifference. He almost doesn't even seem to care about his real identity or past. This is shown when he tells his dad that he'll wait until his dad is ready, and his dad talking about explaining everything later. Never mind that there's a guy outside that casually clapped the entire Galte 13 and all the visors without even using the Hogyoku or his Bankai. There is no later, this is it. This is the last chance before you both probably die, and you wanna wait for later? Ichigo's personality is that of a stray that got saved, does everything he's told and will do anything to protect this pack. Hubris, Narcissus, and Aizen walk into a bar. Orihime and Sato's powers originate from Ichigo. He is the reason all of his friends were able to see spirits as well. It is stated multiple times that they got their powers thanks to Ichigo, yet Aizen states it was due to the Hogyoku. Didn't Urahara deactivate the Hogyoku and shove it into Rukia? So, is Aizen lying? Or is he being fooled by Urahara? So the question we now have to answer is simple. Who's right, Aizen or Urahara? The Hogyoku is never confirmed materializing anyone's dream, as Aizen claimed. All the Hogyoku was ever confirmed doing is related to breaking the boundaries between Hollows and Shinigami, as Urahara suggested. I mean, even Aizen only uses it to create Arankars and Visors. The only feat that is not confirmed to be Holification is when Aizen uses it on himself. Yet visibly, he looks like an Arankar in his various transformations. He has a hole in his chest, black scaleras, just like Visors, instant regeneration, in all white. He throws a blast that's very similar to Zero, called Fragor, which is a Spanish name like other Arankar techniques. The one thing this doesn't explain is that light teleportation ability he uses. Other than that, everything points towards Aizen being wrong about the power of the Hogyoku. So the second smartest person in the verse has both the Hogyokus and doesn't actually know what they do. He doesn't even confirm his own hypothesis of the Hogyoku's true powers. Aizen's ambitions go against the grain, and here is the polar opposite of Ichigo. Where Ichigo lacks goals and does as he's told, Aizen will not stand for the world he knows is wrong, and his entire goal is to overthrow those in power. If Ichigo is a dog that can play dead and roll over, Aizen is a wolf that won't. Intelligent by design, the man that held the ability to reject reality and the Hogyoku that he wanted to destroy at the same time is somehow the genius of the story. Not only did he have access to 3 of the most overpowered things in the entire Bleach verse, in Ichigo, the Hogyoku, and Orihime, he misused all of them, and let 2 out of the 3 fall into Aizen's hands. He also lets Ichigo go to Soul Society without properly teaching him anything. Not only did Urahara know Ichigo was a Quincy, but he also knows Ryuken and the Visors, who all are indebted to him, and could have better prepared Ichigo to save Rukia. Also, Ichigo learned Bankai in the last possible moment, as being part of Urahara's master plan makes no sense. He should have had Ichigo learn it in the 10 days of training before he left the Soul Society. Maybe I just expected too much from the genius that was supposed to be Urahara. He also doesn't outsmart Aizen. He was able to only seal him because Ichigo came across a Deus Ex Machina, or as Ichigo would put it, Aizen lost because he wanted to. Invaluable and neglected. Orihime has the most overpowered ability next to Aizen and Yuha, yet everyone around her completely undervalues her. Kubo could have used this to his benefit. She had a backstory to push this narrative as well. Not only was she completely alone outside of school, she always came second to Rukia when it came to Ichigo's attention. Her powers of rejecting reality would fit in with a person that isn't very happy, as she has no reason to be. Her only love interest completely ignored her in favor of another. She has no direct family and lives alone. Rukia, on the other hand, is very assertive and confident. The female that's taking her love interest away is her opposite when it comes to personality. It makes sense that she'd want no part of this reality, and I wouldn't blame her. Kubo could have had amazing character development with Orihime. He had the ingredients and completely misused them. Instead, all we get is Orihime sobbing in a few panels about how useless she is. The only person to understand how valuable Orihime is was Aizen, and even he doesn't properly use her. Not only did all the characters undervalue her, her writer did as well, completely sidelining one of the strongest characters in the verse and reducing her to a titty fan-serving crying pushover that occasionally heals. All in all, the only characters that show any signs of real depth are some of the villains: Grimmjow, Ulquiorra, and Aizen. Shit, even fucking Hasvelt and Ginjo show a change of perspective. The complete lack of development of the main characters in a 686 chapter series is unforgivable. I would have liked to see some character development from Uryu, who had major reasons to want to kill Shinigami, Orihime, Chad, and especially Ichigo. But alas. I think that about wraps up this video essay. Let me know what you guys thought about the series. It still holds a special place in my heart, as I said before, and regardless of all the issues in the last arc, I'd like to see it be animated. Anyway, hope you all liked the critique. I'll do my best to be as unbiased as I possibly can in the future videos as well. Let me know what series I should critique next. Later.